So I want to talk about now, looking at the broad Vermont landscape, what are the projections for sugar maple in the future, understanding these stressors that sugar maple is facing. So we have, many of you are probably familiar with this, but the US Forest Service has this great tool you can go explore. It's called the Climate Change Tree Atlas. And so for all of the trees we have here in Vermont, including sugar maple, they project in the future how abundant will that species be, what will its habitat suitability be under a changing climate. And the way they do that is they use FIA data. So these are all locations of plots that have sugar maple in them. And they use this indice called importance value. And this is a combination of number of trees at that site and the size of the tree. So a higher importance value means you have lots of big trees at that site. And so the darker blue colors, and you can see Vermont, we got a lot of dark blue there. And then what they do is they take each one of these plots, put them on this graph of what is the average precipitation at that site and what's the average temperature. And this kind of shows this is what we call the climate space or the climate envelope for sugar maple. It's a range of conditions just based on rain and temperature that it grows in. And this sort of illustrates why we're concerned about certain species under climate change. This is the current, or this was the temperature in 1900, and this is the temperature in Vermont now. And you can see that we've moved a little bit into, we're still solidly in that center of that range, but you can see if we continue to increase the temperature here in Vermont, we get into these areas that have lower importance values. And that's certainly true for places that we look down more south of us that are seeing increases in temperature as well. And so the projections for sugar maple are actually a decline in importance value, but that's partially because we have so much sugar maple. But this tool shows a pretty substantial decline throughout our state in importance value. And that's really just a measure, again, of how suitable will the habitat be based on site factors. But you can see that we're still going to have, pretty strong amount of sugar maple, particularly compared to the region. But places like northern Maine are projected to see an increase in habitat suitability. And it's really just based on that climate envelope, that climate space that sugar maple occupies. But I just want to stress, sugar maple will not be lost from Vermont. I think that's a message that was conveyed. And they're always updating this model. And so we do always get new information. We learn new things about how trees respond to climate change and what the major factors are. And so, it's not doom and gloom for sugar maple. And I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we will see that sugar maple in some locations, especially places that are maybe warmer, lower elevation, trees might be more stressed in continued climate change.